Hi, and welcome to the Week 9 edition of The Grid. I'm Mike Foreman, joined as always by Ray Castillo. We have a lot to talk about as we get into the district races now. We're really starting to get down to cases as far as who's going to the playoffs and who's going to stay home. And obviously, this is a Wednesday. There's a reason why we're here on Wednesday instead of Thursday, and that's because we have a Thursday game. And that game will be at Gobbler Stadium in Cuero, where the Cuero Gobblers will play host to Austin Eastside Memorial. Uh, no secret about this, Eastside Memorial has really struggled as a program. They last year they scored a total of 7 points. This year, Eastside Memorial hasn't scored yet. Uh, it's doing the best it can. It doesn't have a lot of kids. They're trying to build the program. So, they're putting forth. But you look on the other side, Cuero, of course, boy, since starting the season with win over Bay City, the Gobblers have really struggled. Coming off that state championship season. And this year they're in a position now where if they do not win their final 3 games, they're not going back to the playoffs. So this game is a game the Gobblers have to win. I talked to Cuero coach Travis Reed pretty extensively on Tuesday, and we'll have a column which you can read in the Advocate on Thursday or on Advo Sports or in the E-edition. You can check that out where he talks about what's gone on this year. But Ray, I have to say that, pretty much I would bet a majority of fans in the area have to be surprised at what's happened at Cuero this season.
Yeah, it's been a rough start for them, but you look at the roster, they lost so many athletes to graduation, and that's been,
Yeah.
a lot of the reason why. But, you look at Cuero mentioning having to win those 3 games to get in. This win might just be what they need, and hopefully they can come out. Like you said, the Eastside Memorial has struggled. You look at last year's game especially, but if you never know what one win can do, and this might be the game that could turn their season around. We never know. It's going to get tough with Navarro, Wimberley hanging out there. But for the Gobblers, they want to take care of business Friday and then see what happens tomorrow and see what happens from there.
Really, and Coach Reed brought this up. He referenced the year where Cuero started out with 2 district losses and had to turn around and win 3 games and beat Smithville, beat Gonzales, and wound up beating LaGrange, which had a running back by the name of J.K. Dobbins, which you might have heard at, if you watch college football, especially Ohio State. He's actually a Heisman candidate. So, anything's possible. It's been a tough year for the Gobblers, and I know their fans, and they're, but tomorrow night is all you can do is play 1 game, and tomorrow night they'll look to get it started against Eastside Memorial. And then after tomorrow, we go back to District 15 5A Division 1. Both Victoria East and Victoria West will be on the road. First of all, why don't we take a look at the standings, Ray, and see kind of how's it shaping up right now?
Yeah, so after last week's big game, we saw Miller and Flower Bluff go at it, and Miller came away victorious. They're now alone in first place, but Flower Bluff right there in second. And then you got Veterans Memorial after their win over East. They're locked in there at third, and Victoria West, after back-to-back wins, finds itself in fourth place. So the Warriors have some momentum going. But this week will be different, obviously. A couple of tough road games for East and West. With West going up against Flower Bluff and East going up against Ray. So it's going to be a challenge for West. We saw what Flower Bluff did. Also, not just against East, but all season long, the Hornets have been a tough opponent. So West, we'll see what they can do against the Hornets.
Yeah, and actually, Veterans Memorial and Flower Bluff, I believe, are tied for second right now. And I think Veterans Memorial plays Miller this week, and that'll be a big game, obviously, because that's going to affect the standings. Let's look at West first as they go to Flower Bluff. They've won a couple of straight games since losing those games. This will be a challenge, though. You've seen Flower Bluff. They play excellent defense, doesn't the Hornets do, don't they?
Oh, they sure do. East, was close in that game in the first half, but the second half the defense just completely, shut them out. They got a touchdown, late in the fourth quarter, but other than that, and their running game has been really impressive. They rushed for over 300 yards in that game, and it was just a huge win for them. So West will have its challenges, but hopefully they try to carry some of that momentum from those wins over Carroll and King, which West had a lot of positives for them. He's looked at Latrell Bearfield in that game. He had a big night, and Tyvon once again and Donovan Harris just really got going offensively.
Yeah, there's no question Tyvon is going to have a big night for West to be successful. And turning to East, I don't know if you remember last year you covered the game with Ray in the East. Ray pulled out a win against the Titans last year. So I'm sure the Titans are looking for a little payback, huh?
Yeah, that was a tough loss. A lot of things for East, kind of went wrong in that game. They had the lead until the very end when Ray made a big comeback in the fourth quarter and to really escape with a victory in that one. So yeah, they'll be thinking about that. The Texans have struggled though this year, and they're coming off a close game against Moody. They lost 27-21, and so they're not going to take them lightly. But East knows that if they can come away with this game and hopefully, not to get too far ahead, but hopefully, finish the season against Moody, they have a real chance here to get into playoff.
Right. I mean, unless West wins out, if East takes care of business and wins its remaining 2 games, it's going to be in the playoffs.
Right.
So, I mean, they don't completely control their own destiny, but they are in pretty good shape as far as playoffs. And we want to turn now to the Calhoun Sandcrabs, who last week against Floresville, the Sandcrabs had over 700 yards of rushing. Just amazing. I mean, they didn't, I think they threw 1 pass in that game and didn't complete it, but when you rush for 700 yards, you don't have to throw.
Right.
Their offense has just been chewing up yards. The Sandcrabs still, because of that forfeit, are in 3rd place right now, but one game to keep an eye on, Southside and Alice will be playing this week, and I think, I think Calhoun would love to see Southside get a W there because Calhoun plays Southside next week, and if Southside were to win, that would put Calhoun back in charge of its own destiny. But they play Somerset down in Port Lavaca. Somerset still doesn't have a district win, so I would think that if Calhoun takes care of business, this is a game it should win.
Oh, absolutely, and should be a game like you said, Mike. If they take care of business, stay healthy, there's no reason why they don't come away with victory, and that'll set up a really good game up here in San Antonio the following week. And the Sandcrabs know where they stand. They know they've had the forfeit against Alice, but they know how good they are, and they'll be able to prove that with the last remaining games.
Right, and going back to Gobbler Stadium in Cuero, won't be idle Friday night. The St. Joseph Flyers will be playing there. They'll be playing the Fort Bend Christian Eagles. This is a big district game for the Flyers. They're coming off 2 district losses to the 2 favorites, really, Second Baptist and Lutheran South. Last week's game, just excruciating, a 1-point loss for the Flyers. This is the point in their season where they really have to turn it around as far as playoffs go. Be playing over there in Cuero, it'd be a good atmosphere for them. And I'm sure, and of course, by playing in Cuero, it forces Fort Bend to go a little bit farther away. But Flyers need a big W here, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. Like you said, back-to-back tough district losses. They were in both of them. You look at the Second Baptist game, led at halftime, and then obviously the last game was tough for St. Joseph as they at the stretch there, leading late. So they'll hopefully want to turn things around, and this will be the game to do it. They'll need to take advantage of it. Some big play, from their backfield. Quincy Johnson, he had a really big game, and he's still got Jaden Miller there as backup, and if Keon can bring it, they'll be in good shape. Right,
and we want to turn our attention to always competitive District 14 3A Division 1. A lot of games there, full slate of course, but the game that we want to keep our eye on this week is Yoakum at Edna. A very important game, especially Yoakum comes in off of 2 district losses to Hallettsville and Industrial.
Mhm.
Yoakum, this is not a game, it's not a must-win game as far as the playoffs, because if Yoakum could theoretically still lose to Edna, and if it beats Goliad and Luling, it would still make the playoffs.
Right.
But this is a positioning game for both teams, Edna and Yoakum. Yoakum, of course, they're a young team, and it seems like they struggle at moments, and that's kind of the characteristic of a young team. You kind of can look at Cuero like we talked about.
Mhm.
When you're inexperienced, you do things at critical times that sometimes come back to haunt you. As far as Edna goes, I kind of get the feeling that the Cowboys kind of are trying to get their mojo back, so to speak. Early in the year, they were playing very well. They hit a little hiccup against East Bernard, and then, of course, they suffered the district opening loss to Hallettsville. They were able to bounce back last week against Luling. So this should be a good one. I know the last year, I think it came down to really, basically came down to a touchdown run by Yoakum late in the second half,
Mhm.
which ended up deciding that game. So it should be a good one, don't you think?
Oh yeah, and Coach Draper's done a good job with his coming in his first year, and Edna's shown what they can do. They have the players to to have success in this district, and we saw highlights of it. And tough loss against Hallettsville. Give Hallettsville credit though for their start, but Edna will look to get back on track against a young Yoakum team, and we'll see how Yoakum does too. They're young, but this is one of those things where it just takes one win and just to get them going in the right direction.
Yeah, and we've got Hallettsville and Goliad, and you and I both know Coach Tommy Pensick. I can hear him now. We cannot overlook Goliad,
Mhm.
and Goliad has struggled. Obviously, they are very inexperienced at the skill positions, and they've had a lot of struggles there. But knowing Hallettsville is not going to take that for granted.
Mhm.
And the same thing with Industrial. Industrial has Luling, which you would think Industrial would win, set it up for its last 2 weeks. But you got to take care of business. And I know when I was out there Monday, Coach Jamie Dixon talked a lot about that. He said, we cannot start concentrating on those last 2 weeks until we get through with this game against Luling. So that'll be a big one too. The district races are, kind of shaping up. One team we ought to mention is the Beeville Trojans. I think they're 7-0. Boy, Chris Sosa has come back and done just a tremendous job. His quarterback Seth Gomez, really a great athlete, special player. That's what I think Coach Sosa calls him. They're going to face their toughest challenge. They have to go up to Bernie and play Bernie in a game that if Beeville wins, it's basically it's the top seed and at least a share of the district championship. So big game for the Trojans there. Really impressive what he's done there.
Yeah, I remember talking to Sosa before the season started, and he said he's never coached a quarterback as talented as
Yeah.
Seth Gomez, and that's pretty awesome because Coach Sosa knows his quarterback, so it speaks really high.
Yeah, and I wonder what his son thinks about that. Chris, of course, was his quarterback at Beeville, went on to play UTSA, and is now his offensive coordinator.
Oh, yeah.
He might argue that a little bit.
There you go, that's true.
I would give him that, but no doubt Seth Gomez is an outstanding quarterback.
Mhm.
Now, I want to point out what some of our ranked teams are doing. Of course, Class 2A Division I, Refugio #1. The Bobcats will have their homecoming against Santa Maria. And Santa Maria last year was the only team, I believe, that scored against Refugio in district. But once again, the Bobcats shouldn't have much problems, I would think, if they play up to their capability.
Mm-hmm.
And also the Shiner Comanches, they're coming off a huge win over the Weimar Wildcats. That was a game where both teams were undefeated. Weimar actually scored first, and but then it was all Shiner from that point on. Really a great performance by Shiner, and Shiner plays Kennedy this week, and we've talked about Coach Sean Alvarez coming over from Cuero, doing a great job at Kennedy. Finally broke that long losing streak, and do that. And also, another ranked team is Fall City, who has just been dismantling people in its district. The Beavers have just been crushing people, and they continue district play. They go to Charlotte this week, and also Flatonia is ranked number 8. The Bulldogs will be back at it. They host Snook, and actually, this game right now is for the district lead, so it's a big game for the Bulldogs. They've handled business pretty well. Their only loss was to Weimer. So, a lot of action through the area. And, these games, as we start getting down to it, we'll start, determining teams that make the playoffs and where their seeding's going to be. And so we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll have all the scores for you. You can watch us on Twitter. Keep up with us at avosports.com. Of course, you can read about it in the e-edition and Sunday in the Grid. And next week, we'll be back again with the Week 10 edition of the Grid.